Welcome everyone, my name is Yarrow and you're listening to the Daydreaming Wolves podcast. I'm super excited to have you and really excited to share this episode with you as well. I have a really awesome herbalist and tarot reader on the show today, but before I get there, I want to share a couple of things that are going on in my world and my business right now, and also things that I'm preparing for you behind the scenes. So if you listen to my last episode, which was a solo one, I've really shifted the focus of my Daydreaming Wolves site a little bit, and I redesigned it. I was up till 1 a.m. on a Sunday night, and it just suddenly came to me, which was really beautiful. I'm in Hamburg at the moment, which is my hometown, so I'm spending time with family, and I have more space here to be creative and do some groundwork in my business, which feels really exciting. And so I've redesigned daydreamingwolves.com. If you have a minute, I would love for you to check that out and let me know what you think. And with that also came a real kind of big shift towards focusing on embodiment. And I still love all the main modalities that I'm working with, or the tools that have really helped me so much. So these would be folk herbalism, rituals, really deep and authentic self-care, the tarot, movement rituals, and journaling. And so I've decided to look at these tools really through the lens of embodiment, because I've realized that as a survivor and as someone who's been really affected by diet culture really young, as someone who's been bullied and body shamed as a very young person, embodiment is something that I had to really reclaim and really work for, and that's of course an ongoing process for me. And I just want to allow myself to really dive super deeply into that and to share that with as many people as possible and to look at it from as many different angles as possible. So I feel really excited about that shift, and it's also changed the tarot readings and rituals that I'm offering a little bit. They're still available on a sliding scale starting from $33, and you can choose between different themes. One would be transition, one is embodiment and self-love, one is purpose, and one is relationship. And they are this little bundle. They're not just a tarot reading, but you're also receiving a plan to work with, a ritual suggestion, and some journaling prompts, so that it's a really interactive, co-created reading that we're doing together. And what's new is that I'm also offering mentoring, so you can get a reading from me, and if you feel like you're in a bigger transition in your life right now and you could really do with some support, you can book additional mentoring sessions with me. So then a reading and 2 mentoring sessions with me are $197, and you can find out more at daydreamingwolves.com. The other thing that's new is that I'm working still on the Do-It-Yourself Business Magic program. Many people have joined. It's become a really beautiful community through the Patron, and I'm just super excited. So far we have 4 modules out. The first one is Purpose, Sustainability, and Cash. The second one is Self-Care for Small Business Owners. The third one is Building Solid Structures, where we're looking at really practical things like software systems and making bookkeeping fun and when to hire out. There's more modules to come, one on social media, one on creating sustainable offerings, and one on long-term visions and growth. And I've also added a bonus module on newsletter marketing, which feels important because many of us are really noticing that the rules on social media are changing all the time, and it can feel really hard to stay on top of that as an entrepreneur. Of course, we mainly want to be creative and share valuable content, but it seems that the rules are changing all the time. And so it's just really becoming clear that having a newsletter list with people that are excited to hear about you is becoming increasingly important. And so in this module, I'm looking at ethical ways of building your newsletter and offering something valuable to people, and also at putting systems and structures into place that make that delivery of that content super easy and really fun for you. So to recap, the Do-It-Yourself Business Program is for entrepreneurs and small business owners, or those who want to become small business owners, but who also care about sustainability and kindness and freedom. I've taken a bunch of business trainings that were pretty expensive myself, and I just learned the hard way in the last 3.5 years what it means to build an online business. So I want to share all of that in a really accessible and fun way. And so you can get access to this program as well as my web design and branding courses by pledging $11 or more on my Patreon. And if that's not affordable to you, you're totally welcome to get in touch. I won't ask any questions. We can just work something out and get you access to that too. Another thing that I want to mention really briefly, and I really don't want to make it too long, I will let you go into the episode really soon, but I'm a bit shy about this and I want to kind of share it for public accountability. I'm working on recording some movement rituals because, like I said, embodiment is really important to me right now, and movement has been something that's really not always been joyful for me. I've made some pretty negative experiences around like competition and just overwhelming sports at school, and never really found something that gave me real joy or that felt authentic. So I'm working on audio recorded movement rituals that are meant to be really accessible for all kinds of bodies, and I'm excited about that, but it's also pretty far outside my comfort zone. So if this feels exciting to you and this is something you would like to do with me, please send me a message or just comment on Instagram. I would love to hear, because that would just make it so much easier for me to actually do it. And then finally, this is more of a long-term vision, but I'm gonna create a 13-week audio course called The Magic of Embodiment, which is also going to be available to all patrons. And this is going to be an exploration of what body liberation and reclaiming embodiment can look like, especially for survivors. So there's going to be sessions with journaling prompts and those movement rituals. There's going to be tarot spreads and simple folk herbal recipes, and I'm really excited about that too. I think that's coming kind of towards the end of summer or autumn, and I will let you know about that, of course, as soon as possible. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy today's show. Bye! Hi everyone, I have a really beautiful guest for you today. Her name is Jordyn, and we met on Instagram. And yeah, it's been really lovely. We've been following each other now for a couple of months, I think, so not super long, but I just keep noticing really beautiful stuff that's being put out on the account called Mystic Sister. And also, she is a tarot reader and a herbalist like me. So it's always obviously really cool to meet like-minded people. And I really wanted to talk, so I invited her, and she said yes. Yay! So we're going to talk about all kinds of witchy stuff today. And I will hand it over now so she can introduce herself.
Yes, hi. I'm so excited you had me on. Yeah, I have known about you for a while, but we weren't really following each other. We hadn't really connected until Amber Magnolia Hill from Mythic Medicinals started this herbal business owners Facebook group, and we both just kind of went in there like full steam ahead, like here's all this information we have. And I think I know for myself, I definitely thought like, okay, I think it's time to connect.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so glad we have. That is a really beautiful group, by the way. And
I love it
big,
so
yeah,
much.
so a big shout out to Amber for putting it up and bringing everyone together and letting us have these conversations that are super important.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Cool. So I already said you're also a herbalist and a tarot reader. Can you maybe tell us where you are in the world and what nature is like around you?
Yeah, I am in Clearwater, Florida. It is in the Tampa Bay area. So it's on the west coast of Florida in its own little peninsula. I live in Pinellas County. So I'm in a peninsula on a peninsula.
Ooh.
Yeah, so our nature is really interesting here because I'm in like the USDA agriculture has certain growing zones, and I'm in 9B, 10A, depending on where you look, which is like subtropical, temperate, but sometimes we get freezes, and then sometimes it's super hot, and our soil is so sandy. So it's like I'm trying to work on growing some more herbs myself, and I'm just like, Florida, why? What even are you? What's happening here? But yeah, it's cool. We have all kinds of really neat more stuff you'd see in like tropical areas. And nature is really great. There's actually, I have my windows open right now because it may be snowing elsewhere in the States, but here it's very warm. And there are birds singing outside, and it's really beautiful. It's a really, really beautiful place.
Cool. I would also love to know, and I heard the birds, by the way, they're really cool.
Oh, wow, good.
I would love to know kind of how you got into magic. So I loved reading your about page, and I loved reading your approach to reading the tarot. And I just would love to hear a little bit more about how you got into it, and kind of who hooked you really, and who supported you on that path.
Well, my first kind of magical teacher and inspiration was my mom. She would go away on trips, or I would go to like sleepaway camp or something like that, and she would leave me with certain crystals. And she had her own tarot cards, and I remember her driving me to school in the morning, and one of our local radio stations had like an astrologist that would come on in the morning and like read the horoscopes and then take calls from people. And it was kind of like a Miss Cleo sort of thing, but local. And she just really, one of her favorite sayings is "let your freak flag fly." And she just always really inspired me to just be myself and go after the things that I love. And from an early age, I've just always been a nerdy little bookworm who, more than anything, loved to just sit at home and immerse myself in other worlds, particularly magic and fantasy stuff. And it's just, I have always as a kid wanted that kind of stuff to be real. And then growing up, finding out it is real, maybe not in the way that we think about it in fiction or in movies or things like that, but it really does have so much power. And so it's, I don't think I got my first tarot deck until I was in college, actually, because my mom has a couple decks, and she would read and I would always mess around with hers. But yeah, I don't think I got my own until I was in college. But I was one of those people who was like, fuck this whole thing that someone has to give you your first deck. I'm buying one. I want one. I'm buying it. And I got the Wildwood Tarot, which, that was my very first deck. And I actually didn't even get the Waite Smith deck until like a couple years ago, because I was like, I feel like I should have some experience with this deck. And I do go to it from time to time, but the Wildwood was my first deck, and it I love it because it's so nature focused, pagan focused, Celtic focused. My mom's whole family comes from Ireland. Her maiden name is O'Brien. And so that Celtic influences are really important on my practice. And once I got that first tarot deck, that kind of really transformed my own practice and how I approached this kind of work as something that was more to me than just, oh, this is interesting. And kind of buying that first deck was what really transformed it for me.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's a beautiful way in. I have the app for that deck, so I've never had a physical copy, but I always really like the ad, and I don't usually work with apps, but I feel like it's such a good thing to have just as a backup in case I ever find myself in an emergency situation. I will be like, I have a place to go to. It's fine.
Yeah. I actually, I don't know if you've heard of the Mesquite Tarot deck.
Yeah.
It's, first of all, the art is just amazing. It's so minimal and so open for your own interpretations in terms of reading the cards. But not only that, but it's like pocket sized.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small size deck, and I typically don't like that, but I was so in love with the art with this deck. And it's actually like the perfect thing to just have in your bag for those tarot emergencies.
Yeah,
Because you never know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's very true. I have the Divina deck as well. We're getting a bit tarot geeky, but I love the Divina because it is so small and I can just pop it in my bag and it fits in my hands. So my hands are really, really tiny. And
Same.
yeah. I also have the Next World Tarot deck, which I'm super extremely excited about. Like the artwork is so wow, it's just really, really
Mhm.
cool. And just represents communities that are really close to my heart. But the cards are huge and they're sometimes a bit intimidating. I'm like, I don't even have a desk big enough to really do a big spread with this deck.
Yeah,
But
I have one deck called the Efflorescent Tarot, and I found it on Etsy. It's just like this random deck that I have never seen anywhere else online or ever heard in conversation. I am the only person who I have spoken to. Yes,
Mhm.
I talk to myself. Who knows about this deck, and I just kind of stumbled upon it, and the artwork is so beautiful and fun and has this very like personal touch to it, but the cards are more that kind of like bigger, more square shape. They're a little wider than typical cards, and I really love the deck, but sometimes I'm just like, my hands don't want to shuffle you right now.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I would also love to talk about plants a little bit. So you already talked about what nature's like around you and that growing stuff where you are can be a little bit challenging. But I would love to know kind of how you first got into herbalism and if you have any favorite plant friends at the moment.
Yeah, so that, plants were one thing that my mom was not really involved with, and so I didn't, I'm let me backtrack here. I'm I'm working on my family tree right now, so I'm really diving deep into my ancestry and my family and my history, and learning that my grandmothers and great grandmothers and people down the line have had actually quite a bit of workings with plants and with kitchen medicine and that kind of stuff. But plants I didn't really get into until only a few years ago, really. And the main thing was my acne. I have always had trouble with acne, particularly surrounding that pleasant time of the month when my hormones just freak out and my face is like red spots everywhere. Um, and I could not find anything that would both heal my acne and not make my skin freak out, because the stuff that was strong enough for the acne would turn my face red because it was so sensitive, and it would make me dry out so quickly and peel everywhere, and the stuff that didn't do that didn't even touch my acne. And I also have oily combination skin, and my face just didn't like anything. So at some point I was like, this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make my own stuff. There's got to be something out there that's helpful. And so that was kind of my first foray into working with plants on more of a level than making a cup of tea, which
Yeah.
I've always been a massive tea nut.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even now, tea is a big part of. I just had a cup of tea the other day, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit here and drink this and not do anything for a few minutes, because that's what I need right now. But yeah, it was skincare that first got me into it, and I do in my shop I sell a variation of Queen of Hungary's water, which Rosemary Gladstar has her famous recipe, and it's this ancient toner, basically going back to the 1300s. I sell a face serum. I make deodorant. So I have kind of a skincare section in addition to the more medicinal things that I sell at my shop, because that was really the first thing that led me to plants. So I have like a special place in my heart for for skincare stuff. And right now, I have recently started just working with and developing a really beautiful relationship with blue vervain. And I feel like it's such an underappreciated plant. And, I feel like there are so many other plants that people turn to first when you're looking for nervines or anxiolytics to calm you down, or bitters, or more kind of witchy woo-woo spiritual stuff. There's like mugwort and stuff like that, and not that all of those other plants that people typically use aren't amazing. Mugwort is another of my favorites, but blue vervain just does so many things, and its energy is so kind of powerful and ancient, and it's often been called the witch's herb. It's been around forever, and the Verbena officinalis in Europe is more common, but Verbena histata, blue vervain, is more common over here in the States. And I've just really started working with it a lot. And it's also really upped my tolerance for bitter herbs, because she's a beauty, but boy, is she bitter. She is like, she will make you make that bitter face the second you take a sip. But that's, she's an amazing women's herb for just that reason too. And so, yeah, I'm just, I have a few new products coming out that feature her in the formulas. And I'm really, really loving working with blue vervain right now.
That's beautiful. Yay. And I love what you said about the skincare. I really, really love making balms as well. I don't have any experience at the moment making anything for specific skin conditions, but I just love making balms so much. That's like one of my favorite love languages is...
It's so easy. Balms are really easy. You infuse your oils, add a little beeswax, there you go.
Yeah. I love what you said also about the deodorant. Can you tell us a little also, maybe I'm going to take one step back. To me, it is so big and really courageous to start a product-based herbal business, because here in Europe, there are so many legislations and things and, to follow. So, I have been making stuff for a couple of years, and I do trade with people. I don't have an official line that I sell to people. So I would love to hear kind of what it was like to take that leap and to say, yes, I'm going to do it, and like maybe to print the labels for the first time and buy empty bottles and all that.
Yeah, until this herbal business owners group that Amber started, I don't think I really realized how much regulation is around, excuse me, around herbalism in Europe. And I hate unnecessary regulations, which, there are some regulations out there that do good, but, my dad is also a small business owner. And if there's one thing that in all the years he's owned a business, which is before I was even born, that he consistently complains about, it's how crushing regulations are. So with herbalism in the States, it's interesting because certain things, we do kind of fall into certain categories that the FDA looks at, but were largely unregulated. So it's kind of tricky, which I think is part of the reason Amber started that group we were talking about, because there are so many things that seem just so confusing. And when I did start the business, I spent hours and hours and hours looking at the FDA's website and all their regulations, and looking at different websites trying to figure out tax laws. And it was kind of a lot. I think one reason I was able to just kind of do it without feeling the crushing weight of regulation-induced anxiety is because I had already started offering my tarot readings professionally. So I kind of had that going already. And also, we spoke about this off mic a little before, but I work part-time for my dad. And he is hugely supportive of me starting my own business and being able to support myself with the things that I create. And so working for my dad and having him understand what I'm doing and support what I'm doing, and having him essentially provide me with a small bit of a steady income. I only work for him part-time so that I can have this other time to build Mystic Sister. Having that support there was really important too, because I didn't feel so rushed I didn't feel that it was, necessary to immediately start selling things and start making money in order to support myself. But yeah, getting the herbs for the first time and getting all of the bottles and the labels, it was really exciting, kind of having it all set up. I'm actually talking to you from my living room couch right now because my office is a mess of bottles and new labels for all the new products I'm getting out. I'm going to try to do a little product photography today so I can get those new pages up on the website. So my office is flowers everywhere. But yeah, it's fun. I love making new products and spending time figuring out these new formulas, and really just spending time with the plants. And I make products for other people to use, but the things that I make are things that I use all the time. I don't make anything that I don't have a connection with. And, maybe that is a poor business model, but I think I think it's great that the herbalism industry and interest in herbalism is growing. And I think there are plenty of places for people who are looking for a specific thing to go. So I'm not really worried about people coming to Mystic Sister and not finding what they're looking for, because I want Mystic Sister to be more than a shop. That's why I offer tarot readings. I have the blog there as well, and I've started a Patreon. And because I really want Mystic Sister to be a community and a place where people can come for magic. I don't want it to just be a place where you throw some stuff in your shopping cart and then you're on your way. I want people to spend time there, and I want people to learn things. I think there's a really big trend right now of witchy people and herbal people kind of heading in the direction of teaching more. And that, while I don't want to step completely away from offering products, because I love making them and offering them to people, I think it's so important too to be teaching people. So yeah, there's kind of a lot going on in my head for things that I want to bring to Mystic Sister. But right now I'm definitely focused on getting these new tinctures out, brand new whole line of tinctures. So that's kind of my main thing right now, but they should be out soon. I'm really excited about them.
Me too. But also, we talked a little bit about the challenges that we're facing as entrepreneurs, both now and in the Facebook group. So I would love to hear what you're doing for self-care, and to keep inspired and in touch with your own magic.
So self-care is definitely really important to me. Kind of it way before self-care was trendy, which it's not a bad thing that self-care is trendy, but I think in some ways it can be a little like, oh, I need to take the perfect photo of myself in this bath floating with flowers or, whatever. And it's like, it's not about showing the world how you care for yourself. It's about caring for yourself. And I have had depression and anxiety since I was about 11, 12 maybe. And it's not, it's not situational. It's not from any kind of trauma or anything like that. I just have chronic major depressive disorder and anxiety. My brain chemicals don't work quite the way they should. And so when I don't care for myself properly, I end up on the bathroom floor in the fetal position, sobbing and wanting to die, So it's self-care is hugely important. And usually mine is not that pretty or Instagram worthy. A lot of my self-care is saying, fuck it, I'm going to sit here and binge this on Netflix. Or I am a cigar smoker, and I will sit out on the porch and just have a cigar, with my dad usually, because it's his fault I'm a cigar smoker. But, and that's my friend Jeff Hinshaw, who people may know as Brooklyn Tarot. He pointed out that it's also, it's smoke medicine is not just burning herbs. It sometimes it's actually feeling the smoke in your mouth, and you don't inhale with cigars, but you get the taste of the tobacco, and it's a really beautiful kind of time spent with smoke medicine. And maybe I try to eat really well, but sometimes I want a pollo tropical. I want their chicken quesadilla wrap, and gosh darn it, I will have one. So my self-care is really just kind of listening to what my body and my mind need. Because, like right now, this past week or so, I've been kind of in a low-grade depression. My next month, it'll be a year since my grandma died, and she was one of the most important people in my life. And just this past weekend, I had a huge garage sale getting rid of a bunch of her stuff, and it's like, I just posted on Instagram about how I tried to make her matzo balls, and they came out tasting oily and salty and awful. And so I've just been in kind of this like funk and this kind of low-grade depression the past week or so. So a lot of self-care that I practice is not beating myself up. Because sometimes, and I think a lot of us do this, we have this whole plan for what we're going to do for the day, or, what we need to get done this week or whatever. And, of the 500 things on the list, I finished 2 of them. And then of course I beat myself up for not finishing them, but then I can't do the work because I'm spending too much time beating myself up, and it's just this horrible vicious circle. So probably the biggest part of my self-care is just being kind to myself and forgiving myself for not always being the kind of like mega hustle boss bitch queen. Sometimes I'm in that mode and I will get shit done and be on a roll, and sometimes I will just lie on the couch all day, and because that is what I need. So yeah, I try to listen to my body, and I think that applies to most things, whether it's food or medicine or what have you. I think a lot of the times we just don't listen to our bodies enough. And so that's just what I try to do. And I do what it tells me.
Yeah, that's really great. I have really similar approaches, and I feel really deeply grateful that we have the flexibility as entrepreneurs most of the time, or maybe more often at least, than people that have full-time employment, to listen to our body and the fluctuating energy levels and ebbs and flows that it has.
For sure. Well, I mean, one of the big reasons I started my own business is because due to my depression, I found it very difficult to hold on to a job. I, would feel okay. I'd be in an okay place and I'd get a job, and it would not be what I had expected it to be, or it would not be fulfilling my, like not spiritual, but my needs for kind of what I wanted out of life, and some of my worst kind of bouts of depression came from being in jobs that just felt very crushing. And the only thing I could do to get myself out of that was to quit that job. And so that was one of the big reasons I started my own business, because it felt like the only thing I could do to make money and support myself without falling into this horrible soul crushing depression.
Yeah, me too. We talked about the herbal side of your business a lot, and I would love to know, if that's cool, what your approach to reading the tarot for clients is, and yeah, if you tell me anything.
Yeah, I mean, tarot was definitely my first love. Before Mystic Sister was born, I was just kind of reading under my name. All of my social media handles were just my name, Jordyn Maya, my first and middle name. That was my website name. I think I've tried to carry over that feeling of, this is my business, but this is also me, into Mystic Sister. But yeah, so reading tarot, the way I describe it a lot of the times to people who are like, oh, I don't want any of that psychic doodads in my business. The way I try to describe it is almost like a guided therapy session, sort of, or like journaling with another person. I see the cards as facilitators, and I try to make it very clear that I am not a psychic. I don't have that. I've never really seen spirits or felt things that were going to happen or anything like that, and there are plenty of people out there who do that kind of work. I am not one of them. And I think the beautiful thing about tarot is that anyone can learn it, but I am very intuitive, and I really bring that intuition into my practice. And so the way I read is a conversation, really, with whoever I'm reading for. The more that that person tells me, the more I can give back to them. If you sit down in front of me and say, "Oh, well, prove to me that you can read the tarot," it's not going to be fun for me. That person's not going to get anything out of it. But if someone sits down and says, "Here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm looking for guidance on," that gives me more to work with. And then throughout the reading, we just talk. I'll tell you what the cards mean in the context of where they are in the spread, in the context of what they mean next to other cards, and see how that resonates with the person. And usually by my asking that person questions as I go along through the reading may shift, and we'll get to a different place. I do rely heavily on my intuition. Sometimes I'll lay a whole spread out and focus on just a few cards. Or I will, sometimes I read with reversals, sometimes I don't. It depends how I'm feeling. But, sometimes I'll see a card come up and I just, intuitively feel that it's, meant to be read maybe slightly differently than what it's generally read as. Like I had the death card come up in a reading for someone a while ago, and it's almost always a spiritual death or an emotional death. And as I was talking about this card, and this person came to me with a completely unrelated issue, but as I was talking about this card, I just felt that I should ask about any physical death that might have happened. And this person had just had an abortion, and that was hugely influencing what they were going through. And so, I just really try to rely on my intuition, and rely on what the cards are telling me rather than what, they're supposed to mean. And also just making it really a conversation with the person, because then we both get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, I agree. That's beautiful. You also have a Patreon, and I think that's super interesting. I'm so excited about Patreon as a way to support independent makers of all kinds of things, really, because
there are some awesome Patreons out there.
Yeah, I'm supporting 6 myself at the moment, and really have to kind of stop myself from getting any more. But I think it's so beautiful that we support each other in that way, and I'm so grateful to my Patreons, and it's really given me the space to do this podcast. And I love having these conversations, but I also have to justify spending all that time and energy on it. And so I just love it. But anyway, tell me about your Patreon. What is the idea behind it, and what you're offering, and how does it feel for you?
Well, I initially started it a few months ago, and I had a whopping total of 1 patron pledge their money to me, and it was my dad. So right, it's both adorable and sad. And I was just like, I was in a place too where I was just like, oh, everyone is doing this Patreon thing. This seems like a great way to add some income flow to my business. I'll do it. And it just wasn't working out. And within like a week, I was just like, screw this. And I shut it down. And then recently, after spending a little more time away from it, and just kind of seeing all these people I follow, seeing their Patreon grow and seeing the stuff that they're doing it. I think I realized before I was just like, oh, this is another way to make money. Great, I'll just do it. Because, as a relatively new business, I'm not currently making enough from Mystic Sister to support myself. So money is a concern. We all like to talk about how money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys security to do the things you want to do to make you happy. So I think after realizing that was kind of why I was doing it, I think that was why it didn't really work out. So I decided to relaunch it. I tweaked some of the rewards a little, and I'm trying to give it a little more love than just putting it out there and waiting for it to do stuff, So I'm giving the Patreon a little more love. I'm trying to make people more aware of it. And I'm going to put myself into it, even if I only have, 5 patrons. Because like I was saying earlier, I really want Mystic Sister to be a communal, magical space. And Patreon really allows people to support me on a number of different levels at the same time as I get to create and teach and give out all this incredible stuff. So I'm approaching it a little differently, but I'm really excited about it. It's still a little baby Patreon, because I think it's been like a week or something since I relaunched it. But I feel really good about it, and I feel really good about what I am offering at the different levels, and I hope that other people will too. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I can so relate to that. I started mine about 4 months ago, and it's just so vulnerable to ask people for money. It's really scary. And to keep talking about it, and to just remember that mentioning it that one time in that one story that was up for 24 is probably not enough. Like, I heard once that on average, someone will have to see or hear about something 7 times before they make a decision whether or not it's for them. And I think, that might be a random number. I don't know what that's based on, but
I think I've heard that too, that like, especially with the technological age we live in, we need to just like ram it down people's throats. And I think it's so tough for us like herbal witchy types, because we're all kind of like, yay spirit, and hooray love, and it's tough. It is, like you were saying, it's tough to say, here's what I'll give you every month or whatever, please give me your money. and it's tough, but I'm letting it be, and I'm just putting my love into it. I'm gonna grow my little baby Patreon until it's a great big daddy Patreon.
I chose the King of Coins as my card for the year. So I chose it. I didn't draw it. I chose it. And I really love that practice, because I think there can be so much anxiety around like drawing a card for the year, because then you're like, oh my God, but what is this, like a 9 of Swords or something? And then everything is good. So I like to I choose a card, and then each month I come back to it and I see how my relationship to it has changed. And so a really big thing for me this year is like really feeling into what is a healthy way of building solid structures and working with money and creating a setup for myself that is sustainable. And with Patreon, I really feel a long-term commitment that I've never ever felt for anything in my life. Like,
for sure.
I started working when I was 11. I had so many different jobs, and some of them I really loved, some I really hated, and I have really, really loved running my web design business for the last 3 years, and I will for another many years. I'm not totally sure, but many years. But with this Patreon, I was like, would I want to do this if this is still a thing 10 years from now? I'm like, yeah, totally. I really do. I really want to nurture this community. And that also kind of mirrors like age a little bit. I've just turned 32 last November, so I've not been in my 30s for ages now, but it feels different. I've never really considered what was going to happen 10 years from now before. And so that's super interesting, and I can't wait to see it grow and shed some of the anxiety around sharing about it.
Yeah. And I think another thing for me too is like, not that you're an old fart or anything at 32, like you're still pretty young. But I forget sometimes that I'm younger than a lot of other people doing this. I turned 26 this month. And it's like, I know, yay, birthday's in a couple weeks. And it's like, I see some of these people who are, they're like, oh, my business is 5 years old today and look how good it's doing. And I'm like, oh, right. Okay. My business is still really young. Or people who say like, I turned 38 today and I finally know what I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm 26 almost. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And so, I think that just too goes back to being kinder to myself. And also just, it's really, really hard to not compare ourselves to everyone else out there. And so I'm just trying to be kind to myself and trying to just share things really, really authentically, instead of in this really like polished and pretty way that just shows the good things, because that is not at all representative of my life, at least. My life is a hot mess. So yeah, I'm trying to be really authentic and just trying to remember that things will come as I work on them. It may not happen right away, but I have to just keep at it, keep working and keep growing things, which again is just, look at plants. Every plant starts out as a tiny little seed that is buried under dirt. And sometimes I feel really tiny and like I'm buried under a shit ton of dirt. But then you look at like here in Florida in the South, there are great giant live oaks everywhere. And these trees are decades old. And just, looking to plants as medicine in that way too is really powerful in just being with them and learning from them on a more spiritual level, rather than just, downing some tincture and going on your way. Really just spending time with plants and spending time with the earth, and learning from the slowness that gives them their strength.
Yeah. Yes.
Plants. Yes.
Yes, plants. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. I really loved talking to you, and I really think that many listeners will love listening to this conversation too. And if
I could talk to you for hours.
Yes,
this
me
is
too.
Ridiculous.
So if people are like, oh my God, I want to find out more, can you tell us what you're offering and where people can find you?
Yes. So my website is mysticsister.net. And really you can find links to all my social media and to my Patreon and to my various herbal offerings and to my tarot offerings. They're all on that website. But if you want to just check me out at Instagram, I'm at mysticsister_, because the single underscore was taken. Lame. And I'm on Twitter as Mystic Sister __ but I don't do a whole lot over on Twitter. Instagram's my main jam. I'm on Facebook as the Mystic Sister, but again, it's kind of a barren place over there. Instagram mainly, patreon.com/Mystic Sister. mysticsister.net has all of the appropriate links you may need to follow. And yeah, tell me if you heard me on the podcast, man. Comment, DM me, send me messages, love notes. I love it all.
Yes, I love notes. I love love notes too.
Love notes are the best. Like, just tell me you love me. That's all I want to hear.
I think sometimes, and I love the love. I'm here for the love, but also I'm here for the questions, and people seem to feel really them. I was like, I'm so sorry to be messaging you. Like, please message me, make me feel special.
Yeah, right? I would love to inform you on stuff. Let me inform you. Come to me with your questions. I am here. Even if the answer is I don't know. I'd be happy to let you know that I don't know.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Thank you. This was
Bye.
so great. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I really hope that you enjoyed the show, and if you did, I would really appreciate a review on iTunes. That's making it a lot easier for other people to find the show, and they might benefit from it too, and it's just beautiful to share these conversations with as many people as possible. If you want to support the show financially, you can also become a Patreon at patreon.com/Daydreaming Wolves, which gets you access to monthly ritual kits as well as courses and regular readings by me. I will link to that in the show notes. Thank you so much.